Agriculture, CUESA. Thank you for coming to our farmers market. I think you're all here early for our new demo because you knew that Bryant Terry was coming. Is that true? All right. Give a hand for our earlier Jillian Knox too. If you missed her, she was fabulous. Big fans and friends, right? We're all small food community here. So first I'm going to introduce Tiffany Patton, who's going to be co-leading up here with Ryan. She's the creative engagement and storyteller for Real Food Media. She's also on our education committee and just an overall wonderful human. Bryant Terry, come on up. Big round of applause. Bryant is the author of 5 books, including Vegetable Kingdom, which is the #3 best-selling book on Amazon.com right now. Right now, right? We're like taking back the game, all right? He's also a James Beard Award winner, leader, educator, and chef, and he's the chef in residence at the Museum of the African Diaspora. So check him out over there. I'm gonna kick it off to them. Thank you all for coming. Check out CUESA on our website, and please come volunteer and come to our other events.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, cool. How are you guys doing? So before we actually get started with the cooking and the demo and all that stuff, I want to do a quick exercise, taking back to my roots as a youth worker. So we're going to get into diets, pairs. We're going to find someone. And what you're going to do is, one person is going to put up a hand like this, and the other person will put it up, and you're going to make a tick. That's how we'll know that you found your partner. So find your partner really quickly. Don't be shy. Maybe you're partnering with a stranger.
You.
Has everyone found their partner? A partner? Okay. So here's what we're going to do, all right, with your partner. So we're going to take 2 minutes for this exercise. Super quick, super simple. And what you're going to do is you're going to take 1 minute to share with your partner some of your favorite food memories. These could be childhood memories, these could be recent memories, and then after a minute, I'll give you the signal, you'll switch, the other partner will share, and then we'll wrap up, all right? So you guys ready in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let me see. I guess one of my best childhood memories, no, it's not really a childhood memory, but I went to India when I was in my 20s. And they have food over there that we don't have here. So there was this brown fruit that tastes like cinnamon. I was like, oh my God, man. Then there's another time, my wife and I, we've been to Singapore, and there's a fruit over there that's a tropical fruit called durian, and it really smells really bad. But I like it. So either you like it or you don't.
I remember durian when first going to Thailand.
Oh, okay. You're right. But I like it a lot. So those two, you see that? I think, and then my favorite vegetable would be broccoli. You know, like if you steam it a little bit, with some butter.
5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Switch partners.
The first thing that came to mind was the childhood memory around food. I was like, a woman who used to take care of us as little kids. She used to peel carrots and put salt on them and give them to us. I don't know if that just came to my mind. The first thing I ever learned how to cook was Joe's special from Immersion Blender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know why, as a very young child, I could cook Joe's special. The mushrooms, the onions, everything. My mom was not useful. I grew up without knowledge.
What?
Yeah. Grew up without knowledge. Yeah, it's weird. I know, well, it's just, I was born in the 60s, so my parents got to move out of the house. I'm like, oh, we don't need an oven. I just remember first time I was like, yeah, I did. And now I love getting much better for sure.
Oh, well, I'm ready for your help.
You can hear the sound of my voice back once. You can hear the sound of my voice back twice. You can hear the sound of my voice. Clap 3 times. Yeah, coach, I work with young people. Okay, if we have a couple volunteers that would just share with the group what your memories were that you shared with your partner.
Come on, jump up. Oh, Julian Knox.
What? Celebrity.
It was like right when I could see over the counter, and my dad gave it to me, and my head almost flew off my body.
Anyone else? Come on, pop up. Shanta. All right.
Adam was really amazing, and then when I seen it to Cole, and I didn't even have to make what the moment started.
Thank you. If you know other avenues, this is Shanta. She is a legend in the Bay Area. Big round of applause. Thank you for coming out. And she will be here in a few weeks. Please come back. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say thank you all for being good sports and participating in that. And the reason I wanted to start with that is because the cornerstone of all the work that I've done, whether it's been youth activism, working with young people in New York City and beyond, or the curation at the MoAD, Museum of the African Diaspora here in San Francisco, or writing books, or having dinners, it's all centered around building community. And we can talk a lot about how broken our food system is. We can talk about, many of the problems that we need to address in terms of access and equity. But I truly believe that, starting with the essential pleasures of the table, starting with community, friends, and family, can be such a powerful way for us to kind of have a springboard for then thinking about the politics, the activism, the organizing, the advocacy. And so that's what I'm about. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tiffany. So today we're going to do this awesome cooking demo, and then we're going to launch into a Real Food Read, which is a podcast from Real Food Media. So Bryant, can you tell us, well, I'll talk a little about Real Food Media. Alright, so Real Food Media is a local nonprofit. We use storytelling and communication strategy to talk about food causes as real food and how together we can transform the food system. So, really happy to be here with Bryant. Bryant, can you tell us what you're cooking today?
So today I'm going to be making feedback. So today I'm going to be making a simple feedback soup. So I'm going to be making a simple creamy carrot soup. How many folks like carrots? Okay. Well, first of all, before I begin, I want to big up Oya Organics right here who provided the carrots for this demo. Yeah. In fact, can we give a big round of applause to all the farmers, farm workers, people who... Okay, how's that? Is it better? No feedback? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. So the reason I'm making this recipe, maybe about a month ago, I actually co-taught a class at UC Berkeley with my mentor, Alice Waters. You know Alice Waters, right? You guys been to St. Benice? Okay, if you haven't been, save up like 4 or 5 months of your salary. And go and have you a good dinner. And so we taught, so she started this class, Edible Education 101, about 9 years ago. And the class is really designed to allow UC Berkeley students to learn about all aspects of the food system, but also it's open to people in the community. And so she invited me to co-teach the first class of this year's course. And I made this carrot soup. And one of the reasons I made it is because Alice is working on some amazing initiatives around school food. I don't know if you've been hearing about the stuff that she's doing. Obviously, she started the Edible Schoolyard a long time ago at King Middle School in Berkeley. But now she's working with a lot of policymakers. They're actually building, so on the campus in Sacramento, UC Davis is creating this whole new campus, but they're building an Alice Waters campus. It's going to all be about sustainable food, a place to educate farmers and chefs and activists and policymakers about all the issues that we care about. And so she's doing some amazing work. And so this curricula that she has around teaching kids more about eating and food systems features many cuisines, because we know that one of the most powerful ways that we can learn about different cultures can be the table, right? if we truly want to, if we have the desire to move past just like, our own kind of personal pleasure, it's a great way to learn about history and memories of different cultures around the globe. And so one of the what do you call it? Okay, let me just tell you guys. This morning, CBS did this big feature piece on me, and so I've gotten like 100 emails, thousands of followers on social media, and then I just got the news that the book is #3 on Amazon.com. So I'm a little spacey right now. I gotta tell you, but I just need to put it in context. But I'm gonna get centered, I'm gonna get grounded, and we're gonna be here. I'm gonna have my carrot juice as I'm making the carrot soup. But anyway, one of Alice's favorite quotes inspired me to make this soup for the class, because I actually demoed a soup recipe, and it reads, "The day is coming when a single carrot, freshly observed, will set off a revolution." Nice quote, right? So before I start talking about the soup, I want to talk about stock. Who makes homemade stock in here? Okay, roughly half of the group. Is it okay? For folks who don't make homemade stock, can you just shout out, what are some of the barriers that prevent you from making your own stock at home? Let's go for it. Popcorn stock.
Too much work.
Okay, just knowing what ingredients you use. Any other? Time, okay.
I just buy powder and work it.
You just get like the industrialized Frankenfoods from y'all can get. I'm just joking. I'm joking. No, look, I will say this. We've gotten to a place where we've come a long way. You can get some really good organic boxed vegetable stocks. You can get some really good vegetable and vegan bouillon cubes these days. So I'm not like such a purist that I say don't ever use those, but let me tell you, like making your homemade stock, incomparable. The flavor is clean, it's fresh, it's bright, and especially when you're using fresh ingredients from the farmer's market like this, it's just going to add so much depth of flavor to the dish. So I'm just going to give you a quick tutorial about making a homemade stock. So obviously, the first thing you want to do is use good ingredients. I need onions, I need garlic, where are my aromatics? I'm going to tell you some of the basic ingredients that I might use for a stock. Now obviously, you can modify it to suit your own taste and desire to the dish you're working with, but here's the deal. You need your aromatics like onions and garlic, and guess what? You don't even need to peel the onions and the garlic for your stock. Did you know that? All you need to do is maybe quarter it with the garlic. You want to break it open with the back of your hand. Maybe take your knife and kind of break open some of the cloves, but you can just throw that right into the stock pot. So no need to even peel the vegetables, the aromatics. I usually use a couple stalks of celery. Stalks, leaves, everything. Maybe like 2 or 3 carrots. Carrots are one of the essential things that I add to my vegetable stocks. But here's the thing. You don't want to add too many carrots because carrots are obviously going to add a little sweetness, right? And so depending on the dish you're making. Now in this case, we're making a carrot soup. So adding a few more carrots and having a more carrot forward flavor in the stock won't ruin it. But you need to be kind of mindful of the amount of carrots you're using. You know, one thing that I often tell people, when you're using smaller carrots like this, you want to peel your carrots. Carrots often have this bitter flavor on the meal, and it tends to kind of dissipate once they get a little bigger. But with smaller ones, peel your carrots. All the vegetables that you're going to be using, you want to cut them uniformly, right? And that just goes across the board. So if you're roasting butternut squash, for example, you don't want to have some tiny pieces and then some big pieces, because what's going to happen? The tiny pieces are probably going to burn before the bigger ones get to be more tender. So you want to cut all your ingredients in kind of a uniform size. So besides our onions, our garlic, our celery, our carrots, I'll usually add some things like some fresh bay leaves, some thyme, 1 or 2 bay leaves, a couple of sprigs of thyme, and then all you need to do is cover it with water, boil it for 45 minutes to an hour, strain it in a colander, pressing the solids, and then you have a fresh, delicious stock. Now, it's wintertime, right? supposedly. So I truly believe that eating seasonally is an important thing that we should be mindful of. You know, the earth is brilliant and knows what we need at different times of the year. You know, in the summer when it's hot, we're sweating a lot, we need more hydrating fruits and vegetables, and that's when the earth is producing things like tomatoes and strawberries and cucumbers, these high water vegetables. Whereas in the wintertime, we need things like, you know, because here's the situation. We know that in our food system, we can get anything at any time of the year, right? People who are going to the farmer's market, you can get your strawberries in the dead of winter. You can get whatever you want. And so one of the benefits of eating seasonally, eating locally, coming to the farmer's market, joining a farm through a CSA program is that you're going to get everything that's in season. And that's what we want to be eating. In the wintertime, the earth is producing roots, tubers, you know, things that are more grounding. We need those type of things to keep us warm. Heavy stews, soups, tagines, you know, things that are going to help us kind of warm from the inside. So
Bryant, do you have like a summertime stock that you make, or is it, do you use this winter?
no, I have a summertime stock. So this is just kind of what I just described to you is just kind of a basic stock. But I do want to tell you about a rich vegetable stock that I'll do in the wintertime when I want something that's a little more, you know, that's more umami, has a little more deeper flavor. So I'll take the same vegetables that I just described to you, toss them in a little olive oil, roast them in the oven at high heat until they start to caramelize, bringing out some of the natural sugars, and then kind of proceed with the process I just described of covering it in water, bringing it to a boil, simmering it for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then pressing it. So what that's going to yield is a rich, kind of unctuous, delicious stock that I think is more befitting of the winter. But to answer your question, in the summertime, I might take corn cobs, for example. Instead of like composting the corn cobs, I'll throw them in a stock pot, cover them in water, cook them for 45 minutes, and have this delicious corn broth.
That sounds so good. I love corn, especially in the summer. And to think of a corn broth, I'm so happy.
So here's the deal. You can sip it. I mean, it tastes delicious just in a sipping warm. Or you can obviously use it in dishes that might, you know, call for that type of flavor profile. It may not work with everything, but, you know, I say experiment. Now, my wife and I, what we do at home, we'll typically make a big vat of stock maybe every 2 weeks. We'll cool it down. We transfer it to ice cubes, freeze it, break the ice cubes open, and put them in the bags. So that way we have ready-made stock throughout the week. And so we make a lot of, like, you know, soup noodle dishes, ramen. So we just have a lot of lean stock throughout the week. But here's the thing. Even if you're making, say, for example, you're doing a grain dish, you want to do a quinoa dish, you know, a lot of grain dishes call for, you know, this part grain and this part water. Use stock. Stock's just going to deepen the flavor. It's going to make it so much better. And so I'm a big stock fan. So,
Do you ever use bouillon?
do I ever use bouillon?
I mean,
Look, I don't want to sound like a snob or anything. I don't, but I do if I'm in a situation where, like, okay, if we're traveling
Right.
and we're in some apartment or house we're renting and we just want to do things quickly, then I might use like a box stock or bouillon. So to be clear, I'm not like some food snob who's trying to tell you not to ever use this. But this is the good stuff. You know, we talk about slow cooking, slow food, and I think part of that is really reconnecting with being in the kitchen and taking our time. Look, I understand that during the week, people are busy. You know, people have like all types of responsibilities, family, kids, whatever. But I think one of the benefits of the weekend is that if we have the time, we can slow down, we can connect with family and friends. You know, one of the things about capitalism is that I think it encourages us to approach everything individualistically. And I hear this from a lot of people. You know, I just don't have enough time to eat more healthy. You know, making these healthful dishes, it's time intensive, it's labor intensive, it's just too much, it costs too much. And that's what I remind people. What if you did it with community? What if you gathered with a bunch of family and friends and you said, you know what, on the weekend, we're going to pool our money, we're going to go to the Fair Plaza Farmers Market, we're going to have our list of recipes that we're making, we're going to have our shopping list, and we'll collectively buy all this amazing food in bulk. In fact, if you go to many other farmers and you tell them, hey, I want to get something like in bulk, they'll often cut you a discount. So then we take all that food back to, you know, the person who has the most awesome kitchen. Or better yet, you know, I've been around the country and I see so many faith institutions, churches, mosques, synagogues that have these amazing industrial kitchens that haven't been used in decades. Have you guys ever seen this? you go in and see, I mean, I go to a lot of black churches, okay, so it happens. But, you know, what if we revitalize those kitchens? So what if the people, the friends, family, church members, went back to that site, made food collectively, then you have like a week's worth of food that you can divvy it up among the group. You can freeze some things, it's fresh, it's homemade, it's local, and it's all what you want. You don't have to do it alone. So I just really want to encourage us to think about how can we be in community. We're thinking about, you know, eating more healthy, beyond like individualized, personal, kind of like, you know, just thinking about how our own consumer choices can affect our own health. How can those choices and other choices we make impact public health, impact the health of our food systems and all that. So I know I'm going to stop on, and you're probably getting tired of all the food politics. So
Well, no, I have two anecdotes about that.
Right.
Okay, so one, my friends and I really love to buy bulk tomatoes when it's that season and have a canning party, and it's like it's so much fun. I highly recommend everyone's doing it. You can buy like 100 pounds of tomatoes and just can for hours, but it's definitely worth it. And then speaking of what you're talking about how capitalism makes us think of everything, like doing everything on our own. Kristen Lee shared this with me about Japanese farmers here in California, and one of the many drivers she went into was that because of the value of their farms, because they all came together to work together and would harvest fruit together and harvest the vegetables, they were able to essentially like make more money because it was just a collective activity as opposed to hiring more like laborers. And so that was one of the drivers that pushed people to take away push them into internment accounts and take away their land. And so I think of like collective, doing anything in a collective is a form of resistance, and a form of like building power, but don't forget that.
yes, everything she just said. Okay. All right. We're going to get cooking now, if I can get this pie started. So, CUESA tea. Can I get some help over here? Okay. So here's the first tip I'm going to give you. You guys ever have dinner parties? You have people over to eat dinner. You do that? Okay. Who cooks with garlic out there? Does anybody ever cook with garlic and you burn your garlic? That's a good first 70 people? Okay. So, yes. So here's my suggestion. When you're cooking with garlic, thank you, rather than eating your fat and then adding the garlic, what I suggest you do is combine your fat and your garlic in a cold pan and then raise the heat. That way they're going to warm up together and you can see the speed with the garlic, right? You don't have to worry about it right away. There's a place for crispy garlic, especially when I want to Southeast Asian cooking. So there's nothing wrong with crispy garlic, but burnt garlic is going to ruin your dish. The second tip I want to give you, if you're ever having a dinner party, as soon as people start coming over, like when the first guests start arriving, get you a little skillet, put some oil in there, put some garlic in, get you an oscillating fan and put it right up against there so that garlic smell starts to permeate the house, and it impresses people all the time. It could be like you're having like an ice cream Sunday social and people will be like, oh my god, garlic. And I guess Gilroy, there's probably like garlic ice cream down there. Anyway, that's all I'm saying. So,
Do you actually do that?
yes, I do. I'm just telling all my secrets. So the first thing we're going to do is, and look, this is one of those recipes. The reason I like making this recipe, and one of the reasons I chose to do it at UC Berkeley, is because I wanted to demonstrate something that college students can make easily. Like this is the type of recipe that if you're in a dorm, I don't have my own clothes. I need oil. I need fat. So if you're in a dorm, and you have like one of those induction burners and a pot and a cutting board, like this is the type of recipe that you can easily freestyle and make. Now I will say that, you know, I kind of created that recipe as a standalone recipe, but in this book there's a similar creamy carrot soup recipe that actually is really good, and there are a couple differences in the one that we make here, and I'll tell you about that. But while we're waiting on our olive oil, I'm just going to start sauteing the onion. So the base of this are some really, this is simply cut nice onions. So, yeah. That's good. Are you guys seeing this? at all? No mirror? Okay. Oh, right here. Okay. So we want to cook these onions just until they're translucent. Now, obviously, there's some recipes that I think cooking the onions for half an hour at low heat when they start to caramelize, bringing out some of the natural look sugar.
That's true.
Will benefit that recipe. This one doesn't necessarily need this. We're just going to cook this until they're soft, translucent, which is probably about 10 to 15 minutes. So while that's getting started, I'm going to talk a little bit about a spice blend that I use for this recipe. So the great thing about this recipe is that it could pivot into a number of directions. I truly believe that, you know, part of my duty is celebrating different flavor profiles, cuisines, classic dishes throughout the African diaspora. And so what I'm going to be using in this recipe is a spice blend that's a cornerstone of Ethiopian and Eritrean cooking, and it's called bedbed. Have people heard of bedbed before? Do people like Ethiopian food? Yeah. If you've eaten Ethiopian food, you've eaten bedbed. And so bedbed is melange spices, and our volunteers here, can we give our volunteers and the chefs at CUESA we know that so often the people in our food system who are doing the hardest work in the field, in the kitchen, the back of the house, they're often underpaid, underappreciated, exploited. And so we really need to show them, give them love. So tip your people. Tip your people when you're out eating. But anyway, this recipe has pepper, black pepper, coarse sea salt, cumin, cardamom, thyme, red pepper flakes, allspice berries, smoked paprika, fenugreek, cayenne pepper, whole cloves, ground ginger, coriander, and chipotle. So
everyone remembered that, right? You got them all memorized.
Look, I'm telling you this, actually in my latest book, there's a recipe for making your own bedbed spice, but we're in a place now where I think people are valuing different cuisines and spices throughout sub-Saharan Africa and beyond. So this is something you can actually find in a supermarket ready-made. I got to tell you a little bit about the spices. So, you know, while you can get the pre-blended spice, the pre-ground spice blends, here's the thing. Especially when you're doing plant-based cooking, I think as much as you can layer flavor, bring in like fresh herbs and fresh spices, the better. A lot of those kind of irradiated spices that are pre-ground that have been sitting in the supermarket, they've been there for 6 months to a year or longer. When you make your spices fresh, they're just so much, I mean, they pop, they have so much flavor. And so, if you can, I always suggest getting whole spices and then toasting them and grinding them fresh, right? So for example, we have
cumin seeds.
We have cumin seeds. So all you need to do is take a skillet and you want to put them on medium high, toast them until they start to smell fragrant, ensuring that you're moving them around and they don't burn. And then after that, it's essentially waking up the spices, right? And so when you're done with that, you can grind it, and it's going to be much better than that kind of pre-ground stuff.
And is there a favorite place where you like to get your spices?
Well, if you guys don't live in the East Bay and you're willing to venture into the East Bay, there's this amazing spice shop. They actually have a couple now. It's called Oakland Spice Shop. You guys, anybody been there before? This place is such a gem, right?
It's like an apothecary of magical spices. It's wonderful.
It's wonderful, and the people working there are so generous, and they will take the time to talk you through different herbs and spices and really educate you about them. Kind of like, what are the people, when you go to the dispensaries now, they call them the blood tenders. So they're like the spice tenders. So,
and they let you try them all
if
you want to, if you're into eating raw spice.
But here's the thing, we're in San Francisco, there's so many different sources for getting like bulk spices. You can go to Rainbow Grocery, you can go to a number of smaller kind of like food co-ops or independent groceries. If you can, you might want to avoid going to the unnamed former cool health food store that recently got acquired by Amazon.com, where you spend your whole paycheck. Apparently I fell flat on this group. So when cooking with spices, in this case, what you want to do is, first of all, you want to add your spices to your aromatics. The last thing you want to do, and I've seen people do this, And this is a big no-no. You got your soup, you got your big vat of stew or whatever, and then you just kind of dump the spices and all that liquid, it's going to get lost in it. You're not going to really be able to have it permeate the soup in the way that you want it to. So the best way to do that is to actually add it to the onions in this case. Yeah, we're back.
You work? So, I never heard that in a recipe until I started looking into Indian recipes and saw that they always did that. It made so much more sense, so much more delicious.
Yep. So the key is you want to add it to your aromatics. You don't want to add it too soon because if you add it too early, it has the potential to burn. Like we're looking at kind of simmering these or sauteing these onions for about 10 or 15 minutes. So they're good to go now. But if you add them too early, then they potentially could burn. But what this is going to ensure is when you blend the soup, all that spice is going to be like tasted throughout the soup, and it's great because we may be adding 2 teaspoons of the Burberry spice blend, and so it's going to have a subtleness, but it's not going to be overpowering. So obviously, if you wanted to make a dish that has some type of, I don't know, Creole spice blend, if you're making a kind of New Orleans inspired dish, you could add this. If you wanted to make some kind of Southwestern dish, you could use a Southwestern spice blend. So this can pivot to so many different flavors. So that's done. This is like a recipe that you can make a pot of water. You can make this dish really easy because once this is done, the rest of it is pretty much adding our carrots. And you know, don't take it for granted that we're in a place where you can get beautiful multicolored heirloom carrots, right? The soup that you're getting is actually going to have this beautiful yellow color, and you know, as you'll see throughout the market, they're not just the characteristic orange carrots that we see in most conventional supermarkets, but you'll see an array of colors. And I think it's just fun to kind of play with those different colors, play with people's expectations of what a carrot soup might look like. So, I forgot our ginger. Ginger is key for this recipe. Now the thing is, we're going to add a little bit of minced ginger, but once again, it's not so much that it's going to be, you know, overpowering. We don't want this to be ginger forward. We want it to be very subtle in its ginger flavor. And
what is the way that you prep ginger? Because I feel like it can be really fibrous and sometimes it's hard to manage. So how do you best prep it for this recipe and all the other recipes?
Well, first of all, I want to say this. If you're ever cooking with ginger, the best way to peel your ginger is using a spoon, right? So obviously you can use one of the Y-shaped peelers, but I found that the spoon is so effective in really getting all that skin off and then just kind of like going around the contours of the rhizome. So use a spoon, great way to peel your ginger. And, you know, once I do that, it's really just, you know, it depends. If it's a bulk quality quantity, say I have like, I don't know, if I'm making like some ginger-based drink, then I'll peel the ginger and be careful about cross-contaminating. You know, if you're making like a sweet sorrel drink with hibiscus and you want to add ginger, you don't want to like process your ginger on the same cutting board that you have just cut onions on, because it's going to have an onion flavor and that's going to kind of like corrupt the flavor of the drink. So, you know, make sure you have a number of cutting boards for different things in the house. So, you know, we have a vegetable cutting board, we have a fruit cutting board, we have stuff, you know, one that we use for things like ginger that kind of sits in the middle, but you can obviously use it on a fruit cutting board. But
by the way, people are coming around with samples, so thank you so much, CUESA volunteers.
there's the sweet potato. So the thing about processing the ginger, if you weren't going to use it like a food processor, is you need a good knife. I'd say one of the most important tools for you to invest in your kitchen is a good chef's knife. Who has a good chef's knife? For the folks that have it's like 90 years old. If you don't have a chef's knife, do yourself a favor and invest in one. Get you a good chef's knife and keep it sharpened, right? We're in such a foodie mecca here. There are a number of companies that will even come pick up your knives to your house, sharpen it for you, and then deliver it back. So,
and in Oakland, they have a knife sharpening station at the farmer's market. So you can like get your chopping done, get your knives sharpened, go home and make some delicious food.
So once we have all that going, we just want to add our stock. And this is our freshly made homemade stock here.
I also want to mention how in Bryant's latest book, Vegetable Kingdom, you have this section that's all about the important or necessary tools. And so one of them is good knives, the other one is a blender. So there's a wide array of them, but for a while I used to drive around in my car, in the trunk of my car, I used to keep a cast iron skillet and an immersion blender. If you never know when you're going to have to make a blended soup. I stopped doing it because I think it weirded people out, but it actually came in handy, the immersion blender.
So here's the deal. This is a plant-based recipe. We can talk a little bit later about some of the benefits of the plant-based diet. I can make a lot of arguments about, I'm not going to get too deep into that. But I'm going to say this. In a recipe like this, it's a creamy carrot soup. Typically, one might use like heavy cream in order to kind of give it that creamy character. For this one, we're using what is a cashew cream. Has anybody ever had cashew cream and used it in like plant-based kind of vegetarian, vegan recipes? So it's simply a mixture of raw cashews, and it's important to use raw because the raw cashews tend to have more neutral flavor, right? Raw cashews that have been soaked in water overnight so that they can kind of reconstitute, they'll be soft, and then blended with a little water until they have this kind of creamy texture as we have here, right? And so, obviously we can use it in a situation like this where it's a soup, we want to have more of a creamy soup, or, say you're making a smoothie and you want your smoothie to kind of have that kind of creamy texture to it. You can add it as well. So we're going to add our cashew cream, and then, once the carrots are fork tender, this recipe is pretty much done. But obviously, the last step would be pureeing. So, there's the standard way in which these type of soups are pureed. You have your blender, your upright blender, and you transfer everything into the blender, you puree it, and then you pour it back into the pot. So, first, if you're going to be taking a hot liquid such as this, soup, curry, stew, anything of that nature that you want to blend in the blender, you need to make sure, for your own safety, that you don't fill it more than 3/4 full. And then before blending it, you want to take a kitchen towel, a clean kitchen towel, cover it, and then put your cap on. And this is just like protecting yourself because if you have a hot liquid that you blend in here, it's more than likely going to pop out of there. So this is a great way to ensure that everything stays in the blender. But with the...
That's actually why I'm afraid of using a regular blender and always use an immersion blender because I did that without the towel. So that was a good trick.
This is the key, 3/4 full, covered with this. But modern, the wonders of modern technology allows us to skip all that, and then we can do it directly in the pot here. So this is what's called a stick blender or an immersion blender. Highly suggest you get one of these. It's one of those tools that you don't know you need it until you actually have one, right? And so you can go directly in the pot, and then you can blend the soup in there. I don't know if I even need to do that. We'll just talk about it. So you blend it directly in there. And, look, to be clear, I don't know if using an immersion blender is going to give you the silky, smooth perfection which you're going to get in this type of blender. I think when you have a good quality blender like a Vitamix, and, there are other blenders now that I think are comparable at a lower price point. But, a stick blender like this is going to get the job done, but I'd be remiss if I told you that, if I didn't tell you that using this one is going to give you the most creamy texture that you probably would want for a soup. So,
how did y'all feel about the soup? Okay, so we are going to move into the real degrees portion. So I'm gonna stay on to talk with Bryant, and we're gonna hear all about his book and also his work. So stay tuned. We'll still be here. We're gonna start in like 1 minute.
So, but before we transition into that, are there any questions just about this soup or stocks or just kind of like kitchen stuff? Yes.
Shelf life for spices.
Shelf life for spices. Great question. So, I treat spices in a similar way that I might treat grains, right, or flowers. if I'm going to have more than a small quantity that I think I'll need within like 2 or 3 months, that's usually kind of like what I'm thinking about in terms of like the shelf life, or at least the life, kind of like the potency of the spices. I'll put them in the freezer. So with my grains, with flours, I usually keep those in my freezer, and that's just going to extend their shelf life. Even nuts, anything that has oil, you put them in the freezer, and that's going to like take them much further than if you were having them stored in a pantry. So I often would do that in with a bigger quantity of spices, but most of the time I'm getting like small quantities in bulk that we're going to use quickly, and they're going to take up really quickly. Oh, I want to also tell you about a really cool store in Oakland called the Food Mill. It's a independently owned, small, kind of like a food co-op in the Laurel neighborhood of Oakland. They've been around since I think the 1940s, so it's like an old school store. But they actually, outside of the Oaktown Spice Shop, they have one of the most amazing bulk sections: spices, grains, legumes, and other. So we're actually bringing you guys to check out the food. Any other questions? Yes. When you're making a stock, how much you then you go back an hour or two. Yeah, so I usually just keep it. So his question was, when making a stock, how am I controlling the heat? I usually keep it at medium low, so that it's at kind of a nice and steady simmer, and then I'll cover it just to kind of ensure that everything is like really starting to work its magic in there. And then like I said, 45 minutes to an hour. I think you just kind of play around, see what works for you. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Another question about stock. How much salt do you put in it, or do you have alternatives just to make sure it's tangy and whatever you put in it?
That's a great question. So I tend not to put stock or salt. So her question was, how much salt do I add to my stocks? My personal practice is I don't use salt in my stock. And the reason is because we often use the stock for different Asian dishes, in which we'll be using shoyu or tamari or soy sauce. And so I just wait until the finished dish is there, and then we'll reseason it. So if it's a dish that requires salt, such as this one, I don't need to salt the stock. But after the soup is blended, we're gonna reseason it right before tasting. I'll add soup, as we're cooking the soup, or add salt as we're cooking the soup, and then kind of finish it at the end. But it's just a matter of preference. I mean, I think you could certainly add 1 or 2 teaspoons to 2 quarts of stock, and it's not gonna make that big of a difference. But that's just my preference.
Okay, they need to change out the batteries.
We're gonna break for 1 minute to change batteries. Go ahead. And we'll be right back. There's a compost bin for your little cups, and stay tuned.